Welcome to the Mark Casto Program, where we challenge the old systems, tear down chaos, and build with kingdom clarity. Here, we equip a generation of wise messengers like you to turn God-given wisdom into lasting impact and real wealth. Let's dive in.
If you don't get anything else from this episode, get this. You can have the perfect business strategy, the exact step-by-step blueprint, the best-looking website you've ever seen, the most expensive software with all the bells and whistles, the coach with the best testimonials, and still fail. Guys, I've seen it over and over again. I've watched brilliant people, talented people, people with every advantage sit in the exact same room as someone who had half their resources, half their time, half their experience, and yet get completely outpaced. Why does that happen? It's not luck. It's not because one had a bigger following. It's not because they were working 100-hour weeks while everyone else slept. It's one thing: mindset. Now, I know that word gets thrown around so much that it can feel like it's lost all of its meaning. I'm not talking about hype quotes you print out and tape to your wall. I'm not talking about staring into a mirror and chanting affirmations, hoping something magically changes in your bank account or God's going to Venmo you. I'm talking about the way you interpret everything that happens to you, how you process setbacks, how you will frame your wins, the story you'll tell yourself when you're on top, and the story that you will tell yourself when you're at rock bottom. Because here's the truth. If your mind is programmed for defeat, the best strategy in the world will just give you more creative ways to lose. But if your mind is programmed for ownership, for resilience, for possibility, you can win even when you don't have the map. And that's why we're here. Because if you lose the battle in your mind, you'll lose the battle in the market. So today I want to talk to you about that battle, the battle before the blueprint. This is the Mark Casto Program. I want this to become your go-to podcast for faith-based entrepreneurs, coaches, and creatives. And we're here to help you package your wisdom, grow your business, and make the impact you were created for. So let's dive in. Guys, let me start with a picture, tell you a story. I call it the tale of two entrepreneurs. They both were the same age, same town, same starting budget. They both sign up for the same business program. They both get the exact same $5,000 blueprint. Every lesson, every template, every strategy, identical. Let's call them one Sarah, one is Jake. In week one, they're unstoppable. They're in the group chat every day. They're scribbling notes so fast it's almost unreadable. They're texting friends about their new ideas. They're fired up, losing sleep because their minds are on fire with possibility. Week two, still rolling, showing up to calls, posting on social, learning the tech. Yeah, it's a little awkward, but they're pushing through. But in week four, the cracks begin to show. Sarah gets her first no. She's on a sales call with a woman she just knew was going to buy. She's already picturing sending the welcome email. And instead, she hears, "I love this, but I just can't right now." Guys, I've heard those words. Those words sting and they stick. But the next day, Jake launches his first offer. 0 sales. Not even his mom wants his offer. And here's where it splits. Sarah takes the rejection and makes it a verdict. I'm not cut out for this. She starts doubting her offer. She second guesses her niche. She stops showing up in the group. And within 2 weeks, she's gone. Jake, he looks at that 0 and says, "All right, it's just feedback." He posts in the group, "Here's my funnel. Here's my offer. What should I change?" He gets feedback. He tweaks the headline, changes the guarantee, simplifies the checkout process, launches again, 2 sales. Not life-changing money, but proof. And proof fuels belief. 6 months later, Sarah's back at her job saying, "Yeah, I tried the whole online business thing. It doesn't work." Jake, however, he's doing $10,000 a month. He's building systems and spending more time with his kids. Same blueprint, same opportunity, same resources. The difference? The story they told themselves when things didn't go perfectly. See, guys, before you touch a strategy, you've already decided if it's going to work. And that decision isn't made in your hands, it's made in your head. I want to talk about three things here. Your state, which is the posture you show up with. Your story, which is the meaning you give to what just happened. And your strategy, which is the actual steps that you take. Guys, most people obsess over the last one. But if your state and your story are wrong, your strategy doesn't stand a chance. I want you to picture this with me. I'm going to take you back into the Bible, into the Old Testament, and tell you the story of the 12 spies. 12 men stand on a ridge at sunset. They're looking out over the land that they've been told by God is theirs. The light is turning the fields gold. Grapevines hang heavy with fruit that takes multiple men to carry its branches. It's abundance, it's possibility. But when the 12 spies returned to the camp, 10 of them split in the report. 10 say that the land is good, but the giants are huge. And we look like grasshoppers compared to them. And yet there are two, Caleb and Joshua, who the Bible says had a different spirit. Here's what they said. Yes, there are giants, but have you seen the grapes? See, both were telling the truth, but only one truth will move you forward into promise. And you and I face this exact moment all the time in business. Some look at the market and see opportunity. There's a gap here. People need what I have. And then others, they see giants. Too much competition. My audience is too small. I don't have the tech skills. Guys, both are right, but only one moves forward. Guys, I'm not asking you to pretend the giants aren't there, but you can't let them be the voice that keeps you out of what you know belongs to you. See, renewing your mind means training yourself to see what's possible right in the face of what's challenging. So I want you to actually take some action on this. Like, I don't want this to just be a podcast where you're like, that's entertaining or that's interesting. I want this to be a podcast that really transforms your mind and requires you to take action. So let me give you an action step this week, okay? I want you to write down 3 things you've done that once before felt impossible. And I want you to keep that list somewhere where you can see it. Because the same mind that beat those challenges can beat the one in front of you right now. See, several years ago, I remember hearing the story about a man who owned a little coffee shop downtown in a small town in rural America. It wasn't fancy, mismatched chairs, chalkboard menu, the smell of beans roasting before you even walked in. And business was good. Regular customers, growing catering side hustle, a small team that he loved like a family, and then a flood came. And I'm not talking about a metaphorical one, a literal chest-deep, muddy river of water that swallowed up his shop in less than 24 hours. And I remember the person telling me, I asked what that day felt like. And the man's reply was, I watched 15 years of my life float down the street in soggy cardboard boxes. The city condemned his building. Insurance covered almost nothing. His employees had to scatter. And guys, most people would have called it quits, but not this guy. He took a few months, found another space across town, painted the walls himself, built tables from scrap wood, and reopened. And for a while, things were coming back. Then a year later, the market crashed. Sales dropped by half overnight. 2 major blows in 2 years, and yet his attitude never shifted. He kept asking questions, experimenting with ideas, handing out samples in the park. And the gentleman that told me the story, he said, I asked him, how do you keep going when the hits won't stop? He smiled and said, because I decided before I opened the first shop that quitting wouldn't be my story. I might have to pivot, I might have to start over, but I will never go back to the version of me who didn't try. Friend, that man rebuilt again. And today, his coffee shop is a local landmark. Not because he had the perfect strategy, but because he had the mindset to keep using it until it worked. See, guys, there are 2 ways to interpret every challenge. You can see yourself as the victim, where life is happening to you, you're powerless, you're waiting for the storm to pass. Or you can see yourself as the owner. Life is happening through you. You take responsibility for the next move. You turn every obstacle into raw material for something new. See, victims ask, why is this happening to me? Owners ask, what can I do with this? Both questions take the same breath. Only one gets you out of the pit. Hey, and I want to do a quick pause here. If you're listening to this and realizing what you're missing isn't another free YouTube video or random tip, but a proven blueprint that you can stick with until it works, I want to invite you today to apply for the Wise Builders Creator Academy. Because what we do inside Wise Builders isn't just strategy. It's rewiring the way that you think about business, money, and your own potential so that you can actually use the blueprint until it produces fruit. And if that's you, I want you to go to markcasto.co/academy and apply today. All right, back to the battle before the blueprint. I want to be real with you. Some of you listening are in the middle of the fight right now. Your circumstances feel like they're screaming at you. It's not working. You should quit. You're not cut out for this. But here's something I've learned. Your circumstances don't get the final say unless you hand them the pen. Your mind is the author of the story that you're living. And if you want to change the outcome, you have to change the narrative. And when I first started my business, I was broke. Not tight budget broke. I mean counting change in the couch to buy gas kind of broke. I had a vision in my heart and almost nothing in my hands. I could have told myself, well, it's just not my season. I should wait until I have more resources. But I decided to make a different story. One where I was resourceful instead of resourceless. One where the scarcity in my bank account became fuel for creativity. So I literally invested the last few dollars I had into a coaching program, not because I knew it would work immediately, but because I knew I couldn't afford to stay the same. And let me tell you, it wasn't instant. I had launches that didn't really do what I thought they would do. I had people tell me that my idea wouldn't work. I had days where I wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. I mean, my God, we were just coming off of 2 years of back-to-back problems, losing our salary and then our church burning down almost a year later. Guys, but at the end of the day, I'd already decided the ending. I'm not going to quit. And every setback just became another plot twist, not the end of the story. And guys, you can make that decision right now. And here's the thing. Once you do, the rest of your decisions get easier because you stop asking, should I keep going? And you start asking, how do I keep going? How do I move forward? And that shift changes everything. It changes the way that you see money. Instead of saying, I can't afford to invest, you start asking, how can I create the resources to invest? It changes the way that you see time. Instead of saying, I don't have time, you start asking, how do I make time for what matters? It changes the way you see opportunity. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you create the moment. And here's the wild part. When you change those inner questions, your brain starts looking for the answers. That's not just positive thinking, that's neuroscience. Your brain literally filters reality to match the questions you ask it. Ask, why am I failing? It'll find evidence. Ask, how can I make this work? It'll find solutions. This is why you've got to guard the gates of your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. The business you build tomorrow is being constructed in your thoughts today. One of my favorite stories about this comes from a woman that I worked with a few years ago. She'd been in corporate America for 20 years, high-paying job, great benefits, but it was sucking the life out of her. And she came to me because she wanted to start a consulting business but didn't think that she could compete. Every sentence out of her mouth started with, I can't. I can't market myself like the younger crowd. I can't build a business without a huge social media following. I can't replace my salary doing this. So before we even touched her business plan, I knew we had to work on her language. Every time she said, I can't, I'd stop her and say, no, we need to reframe that. Turn that into a question that starts with, how can I? And guys, when you get challenged like that, it feels silly at first. But in a matter of weeks, her brain started offering answers instead of excuses. How can I market myself led her to a strategy that leveraged her corporate network. How can I replace my salary led to her creating a premium offer instead of trying to sell cheap packages. Fast forward a year, she's out of corporate, running her own business, making more money than her old salary. And this is the best part. She said, Mark, my biggest win isn't the income. It's that I think differently now. I don't scare myself out of opportunities anymore. See, guys, that's the power of mindset. It's not hype. It's not magic. It's training your brain to look for possibility instead of proof you should quit. So let me ask you, what's the story you've been telling yourself lately? Is it a story of defeat or a story of building? Because both are available, but you only get to live in one. And if you're not sure, here's your litmus test. Look at your last 3 decisions in your business. Were they made from fear or from faith? From scarcity or from vision? If it's been fear and scarcity, that's your signal, not your sentence. Change the narrative, change the result. And I want to leave you with this. Your mind will believe what you tell it most often. If you want to change your life, change your most repeated thought. So here's the truth. The blueprint matters, but it's your mindset that decides if you'll actually build with it. You could have the perfect plan sitting on your desk, but if you keep seeing yourself as too late, too small, or too behind, you'll talk yourself out of laying the first brick. But if you can shift the story that you're telling yourself, if you can start asking better questions, if you can choose the voice of vision over the voice of fear, you won't just build a business, you'll build a life you're proud to live. So today I'm challenging you to do one thing. Catch the next limiting thought that comes into your mind and reframe it. Swap the I can't for how can I. Swap it's impossible for what would make this possible. And then act on that answer, even if it's small, because the difference between where you are and where you're called to be is not just the strategy. It's the story you believe about yourself. And you have the power to change that story starting right now. Guys, this has been the Mark Casto Program, your go-to podcast for faith-based entrepreneurs, coaches, and creatives. Now go live it, go build it, and remember, the world needs what's in you.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. If this spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, leave a review, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss the wisdom that's shifting lives and systems. Until next time, keep building with clarity and fire.